time. So maybe you're having your dinner right now, but clearly I'm not. I am returning to an article that I read earlier today, or at least part of an article that I read earlier today. I saved it to the side after I was done reading it, or at least speaking on it, glancing over it. And I told myself I wanted to read the whole thing. And so that's what I did. A little while ago, I started to read the whole thing. And as I was reading it, I was really so moved by the story and by the woman. It's the story about the woman who set up a pantry, essentially a food pantry in her driveway in Upper Darby, which is really close to where I live. And I was like, you know what? I'm really touched by this story that I'm going to just fire up a live feed and read it to 26 people. Like, not even now, but just generally. Whoever watches this. Like, and the 26 or so people who watch this a day. But it's a really good story. And I'm not making light of it. I'm just making a little joke before I get started. I'm going to read the whole story now, mind you. So, patience. Desiree LaMarr-Murphy grew up without enough food. Back in the mid-1980s, school days were the hardest, when she'd sit without lunch in the cafeteria of the former William B. Mann Elementary School, now Mastery Charter Elementary, in the Winfield section of Philadelphia, watching other kids eat. Years later, after life improved a bit, an apartment fire left her and her children temporarily homeless and dependent on church-donated food that was lovingly bestowed but spoiled and inedible. The foodless lunch periods in the after-fire charity forged LaMarr-Murphy, now 43, into an unparalleled hunger fighter. Trained as a special education teacher and now a special needs coordinator for the School District of Philadelphia, LaMarr-Murphy promised herself two things: to never again suffer hunger and to help feed children and their families by creating food pantries in schools and other locations throughout the region. And now, during the pandemic, she's distinguished herself as perhaps the only person in the Philadelphia area who runs a food pantry out of her own home. LaMarr-Murphy created the network of food donors for the pantry herself and stores some of the supplies in the 550 square foot building she calls her she shed in her Upper Darby backyard. People label survivors of hard times resilient, said LaMarr-Murphy, a widowed mother of 5 daughters. But she explained, there's also something called post-traumatic growth. Bouncing back from trauma isn't enough. You have to do something with your trauma. You grow and become somebody better for somebody else, not just for yourself. You're healing yourself. And you're helping others. Over time, LaMarr-Murphy discovered that there was something wrong in the early days of her life. I learned we were food insecure, she said, referencing the term that means a person or family is lacking the money to buy enough food to live a healthy life. She remembers having cereal and oodles and noodles for dinner, as well as pancakes made without pancake mix. LaMarr-Murphy would enviously watch The Cosby Show, in which the well-dressed characters lived cohesive, loving lives, with plenty to eat. How come, she'd ask herself, I don't have that? In those days, anyone needing free school lunch had to turn in paperwork that LaMarr-Murphy didn't know how to fill out. I didn't want to make anyone in my family sad or feel bad, so I didn't talk about not eating lunch, she said. And at school, no adult ever asked what was wrong. So no sandwiches, no chicken nuggets, no pizza. She'd see and smell the food other students ate and wait for the bell to ring. I just accepted this, LaMarr-Murphy recalled. At 17, she became pregnant while attending Overbrook High School. There, she learned about food stamps and WIC, the special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. I was a disgrace to my family getting pregnant and being the first to be on welfare, she said, but those programs sustained me. After graduating from high school, LaMarr-Murphy went on to the Philadelphia Community College. She had her second daughter with Christopher Murphy, the man who will become her husband. At 23, she and Murphy separated for a while. One night, a fire broke out in her West Philadelphia home, and she and the two girls found themselves homeless. When someone from a local church promised a box of food, LaMarr-Murphy fantasized about its contents, visualizing a nutritional cornucopia that would keep the beleaguered trio going. Instead, she said, remembering the exact items, we got 1 can of waxed beans, 1 can of kidney beans, 1 can of chickpeas, and lots of moldy, mushy produce. I fell to my knees and cried. We waited all day for this box of trash, and there was nothing to feed my kids. From that day forward, I vowed to never ever feel that way again. She kept her word. In 2009, LaMarr-Murphy went on to Temple University and graduated with a degree in education at age 32. She and Murphy reconciled, bought a house, and had 3 more children, one of whom would have her own child. Murphy would die of a pulmonary embolism at age 39 in 2016. As a special ed teacher in Philadelphia, LaMarr-Murphy listened to her students talk and heard hunger in their conversations. They would ask me what I had for dinner the previous night. I'd tell them, and they'd say, I wish I had that. LaMarr-Murphy would bring in food for the kids. Her empty stomach lunchtimes never diminished in her memory. Soon afterward, she started pantries, connecting with Philabundance, the Hunger Relief Agency, to stock the shelves in some of them. She opened her so-called Murphy's Markets at Richard Wright Elementary School in North Philadelphia and at Mitchell Elementary School in Southwest Philadelphia. LaMarr-Murphy also distributes food at several other locations in the area, though none more unique than her own home. In the Philadelphia region, there are more than 800 food pantries, though LaMarr-Murphy's Sellers Avenue location is believed to be the only one in a private home, according to both Philabundance CEO Lori Jones and George Matziak, Executive Director of Share Food Program, the largest food distribution agency in the area. On Martin Luther King Jr. Day, LaMarr-Murphy talked a bit about her anti-hunger mission with then-President-elect Joe Biden and Dr. Joe Biden at Philabundance during a day of service. She said that as she and Biden filled boxes for Philabundance clients, he made a promise of his own to fight food insecurity. And she said she felt she'd met a kindred spirit after Dr. Biden told her that, as a teacher, she too brings food to students, even adults. In an icy rain, more than 30 people lined up on the sidewalk outside LaMarr-Murphy's 2-story stucco house in a middle-class Upper Darby neighborhood. It's a startling sight. An outdoor market in a driveway, created by LaMarr-Murphy's contacts and convictions. Quote, this helps a lot, said Maria Guzman Salazar, 43, a pantry client and a local manicurist whose hours were curtailed because of the pandemic. We're feeding 4 adults and 4 kids in my house, and this is very good food. Everything is fresh. I feel blessed. Saju Paul agreed, quote, it's important for my family that I come here, said the 64-year-old who, pre-COVID-19, worked in food distribution at Philadelphia International Airport. I have no job right now because of the pandemic, but I have a wife and 3 kids. During the neighborhood distributions, neighbors have sometimes complained because of the crowds, said Rashida Zimenez, LaMarr-Murphy's longtime friend. But that's nothing that can't be rectified. Quote, mostly, people are impressed with LaMarr-Murphy's good spirit and kind heart. Jones of Philabundance is also a fan, summing up LaMarr-Murphy's value to the community. I'm moved by somebody who went through so many challenges and literally used them to make the world better. I find her inspiring. Me too. There's the people getting their food. And there's her. Take a look at it again now that we have some fresh context. I mentioned in my initial kind of commentary on it that people have to do this. Even the 800 food pantries isn't enough. 800? It's not enough for people to get food. We as a country should be ashamed that we have this many people who can't eat. It's great that our schools are offering meals to really anybody, to anyone in your community under the age of 18 can get a free meal at your school district. You should know that. It's the truth. And it's not just, I think it's 3 meals a day. Or it's a help. So that's good, but that's got to continue. Should continue past the pandemic. And LaMarr-Murphy, she's a hero. She's a hero. And I thought it was worth time. Just give her a big round of applause, virtual applause. Till tomorrow.